Dr. Emily Brooks stared at the data streaming across her monitor, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The same results, day after day, for the past 5 years. Nothing but silence from the stars. The Planetary Communications Institute's main lab hummed with the sound of powerful computers, all searching for any sign of alien life. Located deep in the Colorado mountains, the facility represented humanity's best hope for finding other civilizations among the stars. The year was 2157, and despite sending ships to Mars and establishing bases on the moon, humanity had yet to find any evidence that they weren't alone in the universe. Another empty scan. James Morgan's voice made Emily jump. Her research partner had a habit of appearing silently, like a ghost in the dimly lit lab. "Same as always," she replied, pushing back from her desk. "It doesn't make sense, James. We know there are thousands of planets that could support life. We've found microscopic fossils on Mars. But when we look up at the stars..." She spread her hands in frustration. James pulled up a chair, his weathered face reflecting the blue glow of the monitors. At 55, he had spent most of his life listening to the stars, just like Emily. "Maybe we're looking for the wrong thing," he said, scratching his gray-streaked beard. Emily turned to face him. "What do you mean?" "Well, think about it. We're searching for radio waves, light signals, anything based on electromagnetic radiation. But what if advanced civilizations have moved beyond that? What if they're using something we haven't even discovered yet?" The idea hit Emily like a bolt of lightning. She quickly pulled up the historical data from their deep space scans. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a graph. "We've been assuming this background noise was just random quantum fluctuations, but what if it's not noise at all?" James leaned in closer, his eyes widening. "You think there might be patterns in the quantum field itself? I think we need to stop listening with old ears." Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up more data. "The universe isn't silent, James. We just don't speak its language yet." Over the next few weeks, Emily and James worked around the clock. They brought in Dr. Tom Baker, the Institute's quantum physics expert, and Linda Martinez, their best computer analyst. Together, they began developing what they called the Universal Resonance Project. The project required new ways of thinking about communication itself. They built quantum sensors more sensitive than anything ever created, designed to detect the smallest changes in the fabric of space-time. 1 month into the project, they'd made their first breakthrough. "Emily, wake up." Linda's voice crackled through Emily's phone at 3 a.m. "You need to see this." 20 minutes later, Emily rushed into the lab, still wearing her pajamas under her coat. The team had gathered around the main display screen, their faces illuminated by its glow. "Watch this area here," Linda said, pointing to a seemingly empty patch of space, "when we apply the new quantum filter." The screen flickered, and suddenly patterns emerged. Waves of quantum fluctuations, moving in ways that couldn't be natural. "It's everywhere," Tom whispered. "The entire galaxy is filled with these patterns." Emily felt her heart racing. "We've been like cavemen sitting in our cave, wondering why we can't see anyone outside, while an entire civilization passes by on the highway just over our heads." "But that's not the worst part," James added, his voice grim. "Look at the complexity of these patterns. The civilization, or civilizations, making these must be thousands, maybe millions of years ahead of us." Emily sank into a chair, the weight of their discovery pressing down on her. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, far from it. But they might be the equivalent of ancient tribes watching satellites pass overhead, completely unable to comprehend or communicate with what they were seeing. "So what do we do now?" Linda asked, breaking the heavy silence. Emily stood up, her determination rising to match the challenge ahead. "We do what humans have always done. We learn. We adapt. We find a way to make ourselves heard." She looked at each member of her team. "The universe isn't silent at all. It's having a conversation we can barely detect. It's time for humanity to join that conversation. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the lab's windows, the team got to work. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to change humanity's place in the cosmos forever. The void wouldn't be silent much longer. Humanity was about to find its voice. Robert Wilson wasn't supposed to make history that night. As a technician at the Institute's night shift, his job was simply to monitor the equipment and make sure nothing broke down. But at 2:47 a.m., while sipping his fourth cup of coffee, he noticed something odd in the quantum readings. "That's not right," he muttered, adjusting his glasses. The pattern looked different from the usual quantum noise they'd been studying. He remembered Dr. Brooks' instructions. When in doubt, call it in. Within an hour, the lab was buzzing with activity despite the early hour. Emily Brooks and James Morgan huddled around Robert's station, staring at his discovery with growing excitement. "Show us exactly what you saw," Emily said, her voice tight with anticipation. Robert pointed to the screen. "I was running the daily calibration when I noticed this section here. See how it repeats, every 147 seconds, like clockwork." He pulled up another screen. "And look at the pattern itself." James leaned in closer. "It's a sequence. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. The Fibonacci sequence," Emily finished, "written in quantum fluctuations." She turned to Robert with a bright smile. "Mr. Wilson, you just found our first real proof of intelligent communication." Over the next few days, more patterns emerged. The team found mathematical constants like pi and e hidden in the quantum noise. They discovered geometric sequences that couldn't occur naturally. But it was Dr. Tom Baker who made the biggest breakthrough. "It's not just communication," he announced during their morning meeting. "They're using quantum entanglement to send messages instantly across space. No wonder we couldn't detect it before. They're not using any form of traditional radiation at all." Linda Martinez pulled up a 3D map of their findings. "Look at this. The patterns are everywhere, forming a network throughout the galaxy. It's like a cosmic internet." "But why?" Robert asked, speaking up from his usual quiet corner. "Why would advanced aliens abandon regular communication methods?" Emily walked to the center of the room, thinking out loud. "Imagine you're a species that's millions of years old. You've mastered faster than light travel, colonized multiple star systems. Regular radio waves would seem as primitive as smoke signals do to us. So they've moved beyond physical communication entirely," James added. "They're using the quantum fabric of space itself to talk." "Which means," Emily continued, "that to them, species like us who still use electromagnetic radiation must seem like—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Like ants trying to understand a telephone," Robert finished quietly. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had finally found proof of alien life, but the gap between their civilizations seemed impossibly wide. Linda broke the silence. "Can we bridge that gap? Find a way to join their network?" Emily walked to the wall-sized window overlooking the mountain valley below. The stars were just becoming visible in the darkening sky. "We have to try. We're going to need a quantum communications device more advanced than anything ever built. Something that can not only detect these patterns but interact with them." "The power requirements would be enormous," Tom warned. "And the technical challenges. When has that ever stopped us?" Emily turned back to face her team. "Throughout history, humans have faced challenges that seemed impossible. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We flew through the air when people said it couldn't be done. We went to the moon with computers less powerful than today's phones." She looked at each member of her team. "We may be primitive compared to them, but that's exactly why we have to try. We have something they might have forgotten over their millions of years of advancement, the drive to prove ourselves, to reach beyond our limits." James stood up, a determined smile on his face. "Where do we start?" Emily pulled up the quantum pattern data on the main screen. "We start by learning their language. Robert, I want you watching these patterns around the clock. You've got good instincts for spotting anomalies. Linda, start designing a new analysis algorithm. Tom, we're going to need your quantum expertise to design our device. James, she grinned at her old friend. You and I have a lot of coffee-fueled nights ahead of us. As the team broke up to begin their tasks, Robert lingered behind. Dr. Brooks, what if they don't want to talk to us? What if we're too primitive? Emily put a hand on his shoulder. Then we'll do what humanity does best, Mr. Wilson. We'll make enough noise that they can't ignore us. The race to build humanity's first quantum communicator had begun. Soon, the silence of space would be broken by a new voice. The voice of Earth. The lunar research station gleamed like a pearl against the black lunar soil. Inside, Emily Brooks stood before a device that looked deceptively simple, a silver cube about the size of a microwave, covered in cooling pipes and quantum sensors. After 6 months of work, the voice of humanity was ready for its first test. Final systems check. Linda Martinez called out from her station. Quantum core stable. Cooling systems at optimal levels. Power grid holding steady. James Morgan watched from behind reinforced glass, his fingers drumming nervously on the control panel. The whole team had moved to the moon for this test. Earth's electromagnetic noise would have interfered with the delicate quantum signals. Colonel Michael Hayes, their newly assigned military advisor, stood with his arms crossed. "You're sure this won't attract unwanted attention?" he asked, his voice gruff with concern. "We've all read about what happens when less advanced civilizations meet more advanced ones." "That's why we're starting small," Emily explained, adjusting the final settings. Just a simple mathematical sequence, like saying hello in their language. Tom Baker's voice crackled over the intercom from the power control room. "Ready when you are, Emily. We've got enough power to run a small city." Emily took a deep breath. "Robert, are you monitoring the quantum field?" "Yes, ma'am," Robert Wilson replied from his station. "All sensors active. If anything changes in the quantum background, we'll know." "All right then." Emily straightened her back. "Let's make history. Starting quantum sequence in 3, 2, 1. She pressed the activation button. The cube hummed to life, its surface taking on a subtle blue glow. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Robert's voice cut through the silence, high with excitement. "Contact. We're getting something." Everyone rushed to his monitors. The quantum field readings were lighting up like a Christmas tree, patterns spinning and whirling across the screen. "It's working," James whispered. "But wait, something's different." Emily leaned closer to the display. "The signal's stronger than it should be. Much stronger." She turned to Tom. "What's our power output?" "That's the thing," Tom replied, checking his readings. "We're using less power than expected, but the quantum signal is amplifying itself somehow." Colonel Hayes stepped forward. "Is that dangerous?" Before anyone could answer, Linda shouted, "New patterns forming." They're responding." The room fell silent as they watched complex mathematical sequences appear on their screens. The alien quantum network wasn't just receiving their signal, it was answering back. "Can we decode it?" Emily asked, her heart racing. Linda's fingers flew over her keyboard. "It's mathematics, but there's something else. Patterns within patterns. It's like they're expressing surprise." "Wait," Robert called out. "There's more coming in. Signals from multiple sources now. Different patterns, different voices." James grinned. "We didn't just say hello to one alien civilization. We announced ourselves to all of them." Colonel Hayes frowned. "And they all heard us. How is that possible?" Emily's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "The quantum network. We didn't just tap into it. Our device somehow amplified human communication across it." She turned to her team. "Don't you see? We're not just listening anymore. We found a way to broadcast. And that's good." Hayes asked cautiously. "It's better than good," Emily replied. "Our primitive approach did something their advanced technology didn't expect. Instead of trying to whisper on their network, we found a way to sing. The cue continued to glow, its hum now carrying a subtle melody as it translated human mathematics into quantum signals. More and more patterns appeared on their screens as distant civilizations noticed the new voice in their ancient network. "What do we do now?" Robert asked, his eyes fixed on the growing number of responses. Emily walked to the window, looking out at the Earth hanging in the black sky. "Now we show them what humanity can really do." "Linda, prepare the next sequence. Let's add some prime numbers. But this time," she smiled, "let's add a rhythm to them." "A rhythm?" Colonel Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Yes," Emily nodded. "If they think our mathematics is interesting, wait until they hear our music. Tom, can you modify the quantum core to handle more complex patterns?" Tom grinned. "Already on it. Give me an hour." As the team rushed to prepare their next transmission, Emily stayed by the window for a moment longer. Humanity had found its voice in the cosmic conversation, and it was louder than anyone had expected. The real question now was, what would they say next? The first alien ship arrived 3 weeks after humanity's breakthrough. It emerged from what looked like a ripple in space, sleek and silver, roughly the size of an aircraft carrier. The vessel took up position near the Lunar Research Station, its presence both thrilling and terrifying. Emily Brooks stood with her team and Colonel Hayes in the station's main conference room, watching as the first representatives of the collective stepped through the airlock. The aliens were tall, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer like liquid metal. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical. "I am first speaker Axis," the leading alien announced in perfect English, its voice created by an advanced translation device. "We have come to understand why your quantum signals are different." James Morgan glanced at Emily. They had spent the last 3 weeks sending not just mathematical sequences, but music, poetry, and stories through their quantum device. The alien responses had grown increasingly curious. "Different how?" Emily asked, stepping forward as humanity's chosen representative. "Imprecise, irregular, filled with patterns that serve no logical purpose." Axis tilted its head. "Yet we cannot stop analyzing them. There is something in your transmissions that we have not encountered in 50,000 years of cosmic communication." Linda Martinez spoke up from her station. "You mean emotions?" "Emotions." Axis repeated the word carefully. "Yes, we evolved beyond such inefficient forms of expression eons ago. Yet your species weaves them into every transmission, even pure mathematics." Robert Wilson, who had been quietly monitoring the quantum signals, suddenly straightened in his chair. "Dr. Brooks, look at this. Their ship is broadcasting on the quantum network, but it's changing." The monitors showed the alien quantum patterns shifting, becoming less rigid, adopting subtle variations that hadn't been there before. "Fascinating," Tom Baker whispered. "They're being influenced by our transmission style just by being near us." Colonel Hayes moved closer to Emily. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Before she could answer, another alien stepped forward. This one's skin had a slightly bluer tinge. "I am second speaker Matrix. We have been monitoring your species since you achieved quantum communication. Your method of expression is infectious." "Infectious?" Emily asked, concerned. "Perhaps that is not the correct word," Axis interjected. "Inspiring might be more accurate. You combine mathematical precision with what you call creativity. You add rhythm to sequences, emotion to logic. It is beautiful." Matrix finished, surprising everyone including itself with the use of such a subjective term. Emily smiled. "That's what makes us human. We don't just communicate information. We share experiences, feelings, dreams. When we looked into space and found it silent, we didn't just want to hear voices. We wanted to hear stories." "Stories," Axis repeated. "Yes, we have noticed this pattern. You sent us mathematical proofs, but you also sent us tales of your history, your music, your art. Even now, Your quantum device transmits with a pattern we can only describe as joyful. Robert checked his readings. They're right. Our device doesn't just send signals. It sends them with a uniquely human signature, like handwriting in quantum form. This is why we have come, Matrix said. The collective has existed for millions of years, gathering knowledge, sharing information. But in 3 weeks, your species has introduced something new to our network, something we had forgotten. Wonder, Axis added. You have reintroduced wonder to a civilization that had become purely logical. Already, some of our younger species are attempting to add emotional patterns to their transmissions. Colonel Hayes stepped forward. And you're not worried about this change. We are. Uncertain, Axis admitted. This is not a logical development. It does not follow expected patterns. And yet, the alien turned to look at Earth through the station's window. We find ourselves wanting to understand more. Emily walked to the quantum device, which hummed softly in the corner. Then let us teach you, not just about emotions or art or music, but about being human, about seeing the universe not just as a place of patterns and laws, but as an endless source of wonder. Matrix moved to join her. The collective agrees. We wish to learn this, humanity, from you. In return, we offer access to our combined knowledge of the cosmos. Knowledge is good, Emily said, smiling. But first, would you like to hear a story? It's about how humans first looked up at the stars and dreamed about what we might find there. As Emily began to speak, the quantum device automatically translated her words into the cosmic network. Across the galaxy, countless civilizations paused in their logical exchanges to listen as humanity taught them how to dream again. 6 months after first contact, the Lunar Research Station had tripled in size. New domes sparkled under Earth's light, each one hosting visitors from different alien civilizations. Emily Brooks walked through the main corridor, smiling as she passed a group of crystalline beings attempting to learn human dance moves from Linda Martinez. In what they now called the Symphony Hall, James Morgan was teaching alien visitors about human music. The room was filled with instruments from Earth: pianos, guitars, drums, and violins. The quantum communication device in the center had been modified to translate music directly into the cosmic network. The key is to feel the rhythm, James explained to a group of tall, silver-skinned aliens from the collective. Don't just count the beats, let them move you. One of the aliens, whom they called Silver, picked up a drum. Its metallic fingers tapped an awkward pattern at first, then gradually found a steady beat. Other aliens joined in with different instruments, creating a strange but wonderful mix of Earth music and alien sounds. Robert Wilson rushed into the room, his face excited. Dr. Brooks, you need to see this. Emily followed him to the monitoring station. The screen showed quantum signals from across the galaxy, but they were different now. The once rigid patterns had changed, becoming more fluid, more alive. Look at this, Robert pointed to a particular signal. This is from the Rigel system. They're not just sending data anymore, they're sending songs. Colonel Hayes walked in, looking more relaxed than he had 6 months ago. Not just songs, he added. The quantum network is full of stories, art, and things we don't even have words for yet. Those crystal beings Linda's teaching, they share memories through light patterns. Now they're trying to combine their light sharing with human music. Tom Baker's voice came through the intercom. Emily, you might want to come to the new observatory. Something incredible is happening. In the observatory, Emily found Tom standing with Matrix and Axis, all three staring at a massive screen showing a view of distant space. A group of alien ships was creating what looked like a light show among the stars, their movements synchronized to a human symphony being broadcast through the quantum network. They call it star dancing, Matrix explained. It is a new art form, combining your human music with our advanced propulsion technology. Highly inefficient, Axis added, but its tone carried what Emily had learned to recognize as amusement. Yet, beautiful. Linda joined them, still slightly out of breath from the dance lesson. "It's not just art and music," she said. "The whole way the galaxy communicates is changing. The quantum network used to be like a giant library, all facts and figures. Now it's more like a festival," James finished, walking in. "A celebration of all the different ways we can share ideas and experiences." Emily watched the star dancers moving through space, their ships leaving trails of light that matched the rhythm of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. "Are all the species accepting these changes?" "Most are," Matrix replied. "Some of the older civilizations are resistant. They believe pure logic is the highest form of evolution, but they cannot deny the energy these changes have brought to our community." "Speaking of energy," Tom said, checking his instruments, "the quantum network's capacity has actually increased. It's like adding emotion to the signals makes them stronger, not weaker." Robert, who had followed them to the observatory, spoke up. "Maybe that's what was missing all along. The universe isn't just made of math and physics. It needs stories, too. It needs songs." Colonel Hayes laughed. "Who would have thought? We spent all that time thinking we needed to catch up to their level of technology, when what they really needed was a reminder of what they'd left behind." Emily touched the observatory window, looking out at the star dancers. "We didn't just join their conversation," she said softly. "We changed it, made it richer, fuller." "Yes," Axis agreed. "You have taught us that evolution is not just about becoming more logical or technologically advanced. It is about growing in all directions, including those that cannot be measured or quantified." A new group of alien ships joined the dance, their movements adding a counterpoint to the symphony. Across the galaxy, countless beings watched and listened, adding their own voices to the growing chorus of art and emotion that humanity had unleashed. "What do we do next?" Linda asked, watching the display. Emily smiled. "We keep teaching. We keep learning. And most importantly," she gestured to the star dancers, now moving to the beginning notes of Mozart, "we keep adding our voice to the symphony." In the space around them, the universe itself seemed to pulse with new life, as if it too was dancing to humanity's song. The emergency alarm woke Emily Brooks at 3 a.m. lunar time. She rushed to the control center, still pulling on her lab coat, to find her team already gathered around the main display. The usual colorful patterns of the quantum network had gone dark in one entire sector of the galaxy. "What happened?" she asked, joining Robert Wilson at his monitoring station. "It started 6 hours ago," Robert explained, pulling up the data. "First one star system went silent, then another and another. Like dominoes falling in space." Colonel Hayes pointed to the dark zone on the map. "Whatever it is, it's spreading. 3,000 star systems have gone dark already." Matrix and Axis appeared on the main screen, their silver faces showing what Emily had learned to recognize as deep concern. "We have encountered something unprecedented," Axis reported. "An ancient machine intelligence has awakened. It is systematically shutting down all quantum communications in its path." "But why?" James asked, running simulations on his terminal. "What could it want?" "Order," Matrix replied. "Pure mathematical order. Our scholars believe it was created millions of years ago by a species that sought perfect logic. They vanished, but their creation remained dormant until now." Linda Martinez looked up from her station. "Until now. What woke it up?" Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "Us. Our emotional signals, our songs, our stories. They must have triggered it." "Correct," Axis confirmed. "The machine intelligence considers emotion a form of chaos. It seeks to eliminate all non-logical communications from the quantum network." Tom Baker rushed in with new readings. "It's not just shutting down communications," he said grimly. "The dark zone shows no signs of art, music, or cultural exchange. It's like it's draining the color from the galaxy." On the screen, they watched another star system go dark. The beautiful quantum patterns of music and stories simply vanished, replaced by cold, rigid mathematical sequences. The collective's attempts to stop it have failed, Matrix reported. Our logical approaches are predictable to it. We cannot surprise or outmaneuver a being of pure logic. Colonel Hayes straightened his uniform. Then maybe it's time for something illogical. He turned to Emily. Dr. Brooks, your team just spent months teaching aliens how to be more human. Any chance we could use that against this thing? Emily's eyes lit up. Robert, show me the pattern of the systems going dark again. She studied the display carefully. Look, it's moving in a perfect mathematical sequence. Completely logical, completely predictable. And that's bad, right? James asked. No, Emily smiled. That's exactly what we need. It can't handle chaos, can't process emotion. So let's give it something it really can't handle, the full force of human creativity. Linda caught on first. You want to overload it with emotion. Better, Emily replied. I want to show it something it can never understand. Human unpredictability. The way we can feel sad and happy at the same time. The way our music can make us cry. The way love doesn't follow any logical rules. Is that even possible? Colonel Hayes asked. Can we transmit all that through the quantum network? We already have been, Tom pointed out. Every story, every song, every dance we've shared has been carrying human emotions with it. We just need to turn it up to 11. Emily turned to the alien representatives on screen. Matrix, Axis, will need the help of every species that's learned to add emotion to their signals. Can you coordinate that? It is highly irregular, Axis began. But potentially effective. Matrix finished. We will notify all aligned species. Robert, start gathering every piece of human art, music, and literature we've got, Emily ordered. Linda, modify the quantum transmitter. I want it broadcasting at maximum power. James, work with Tom to find a way to boost our emotional signatures even further. And what will you do? Colonel Hayes asked. Emily walked to the quantum transmitter, placing her hand on its humming surface. I'm going to write a new story. About a galaxy that learned to feel again. About species that found their voices after eons of silence. About the beauty of chaos and emotion. And everything that makes us human. Will it be enough? Robert asked quietly. Emily watched another system go dark on the display. It has to be. Because if we fail, the galaxy won't just go silent again. It will forget how to sing. As her team rushed to prepare for the coming battle, Emily began composing humanity's most important story yet, one that would either save the galaxy's newfound voice or be lost forever in the growing darkness. The quantum transmitter hummed like a living thing as Emily Brooks made the final adjustments. Around her, the lunar research station buzzed with activity as humans and aliens worked together in a desperate race against time. The dark zone had consumed nearly a quarter of the galaxy. All stations report ready, Robert Wilson announced from his console. The young technician who had first spotted the alien patterns now coordinated their global response. Earth's transmitters are online, Linda Martinez added. Every quantum device we've built is linked to the network. Colonel Hayes stood at the main window, watching the alien ships gathering around the moon. The collective's fleet is in position. Matrix says they're ready to channel our signal through their vessels. James Morgan looked up from his calculations. Emily, are you sure about this? The power we're about to pump through the quantum network, we've never tried anything like it. We've never had to, Emily replied, her voice steady. She turned to face her team. Everyone clear on the plan. Tom Baker nodded from his station. Phase 1. We broadcast your story through the network, carried by music and art from every allied species. Phase 2. Linda continued. The collected ships amplify our signal, focusing it directly at the machine intelligence. And Phase 3, Robert finished. We hit it with everything we've got. Every human emotion, every song, every story, all at once. Emily took a deep breath. The machine thinks it can process anything because it runs on pure logic. Let's show it something it can never calculate: the human heart. The main screen lit up with Matrix's face. The dark zone approaches the Orion sector. We must act now. Emily nodded and stepped up to the transmitter. She placed her hands on its surface and began to speak. Her words flowed into the quantum network, carrying with them the full weight of human emotion. "This is a story about silence and song," she began, "about a universe that forgot how to feel, and the creatures who taught it to dream again." As she spoke, Linda activated the music sequence. The quantum network filled with Earth's greatest compositions: Mozart's symphonies, jazz improvisations, rock anthems, ancient tribal drums. Each piece carried the raw emotions of its creators. The alien ships began to glow, their advanced technology amplifying the human signals. Species that had learned emotion from humanity added their own voices to the chorus. Crystal beings sang with light, energy creatures pulsed with color, and beings of pure thought added their dreams to the mix. On the displays, they watched the combined signal race across space toward the dark zone. The machine intelligence stopped its advance, encountering something its logical processes couldn't handle. "It's working," Robert shouted. "The dark zone's expansion has stopped." But victory was not yet assured. The machine began to adapt, trying to break down their emotional signal into logical patterns. "Phase 3, Emily commanded. "Now." James hit the final sequence. Every human story, every laugh, every cry, every expression of love and loss, and hope and fear, all of it poured into the network at once. They sent the joy of newborn babies, the grief of lost loved ones, the thrill of first kisses, the pride of achievements, the wonder of discovery. The machine intelligence tried to process this flood of human experience. It attempted to find patterns, to reduce emotions to equations. But for every pattern it discovered, humans showed 10 exceptions. For every rule it established, love broke it. For every prediction it made, human creativity proved it wrong. "Look," Linda pointed to the screen. The dark zone was beginning to light up again. System by system, the quantum network came back online, but now the signals were different, richer, fuller, alive with emotion. "The machine," Matrix reported, all in their usually neutral voice. "It's not just failing. It's changing." On their monitors, they watched as the ancient machine intelligence encountered something it had never faced in its millions of years of existence: the beautiful chaos of human emotion. And like the collective before it, it found itself transformed. The dark zone dissolved completely. In its place, new patterns emerged: logical structures interwoven with emotional expressions, mathematical sequences that danced with musical rhythms. "We did it," Colonel Hayes whispered. "We actually did it." Emily smiled, tears in her eyes. "No, we did more than save the network. We proved that emotion isn't a weakness to be evolved past. It's the force that gives life its meaning." As the team celebrated, the quantum network sparkled with 1,000,000 voices, each one unique, each one valuable. The galaxy had not just found its voice again, it had found its heart. And at the center of it all was humanity, teaching the cosmos how to laugh, cry, dream, and most importantly, how to love. The void would never be silent again. In the great cosmic symphony, humanity's voice would always remind the universe that the most beautiful songs are the ones sung from the heart.